Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and in 2025, this is what $100 worth of video games looks like. Now, I'm making this video because it's gonna get tough for a lot of collectors and a lot of folks who enjoy the hobby of playing and collecting video games. It's going to get harder for them to do it. Not necessarily because the prices of games are going to get higher, but because the overall economy is probably not going to be as bountiful as it was a few years ago. And this has nothing to do with the administration. This has simply everything to do with things like inflation. It has everything to do with the cost of living going through the roof, and people just not being able to afford their current expenses, let alone add to those current expenses by buying video games, and expensive video games at that. So I decided to put together this stack of games, which I know a lot of you are probably looking at them and you're probably like, well, Y2K, that's not true. Price Charting has a lot of those games for $10 or $9 or $8. But this is a very feasible stack of games that you could get for $100 should you catch them during one of GameStop's 4 under 10 for 20 deal, right? That is a promotion where GameStop allows you to get every game that they have that is under $10 at basically $4.75 a piece if you're a pro member. And that's how you take advantage of that promo. Now, most of these games are probably going to be at a normal price. They're probably going to be somewhere around $10, if not less. But the reason why I'm showcasing these games is because, in my opinion, these are quality titles that I think are not only classics. You know, some of these games have been played by millions, they've been enjoyed by millions, and they're not very expensive at all. And I think these are games that are probably in a lot of different people's collection because of, you know, the type of fun that they bring. So I'm going to go ahead and display these games. I'm going to showcase a few of them, and then I want to kind of go back and just talk a little bit about what we can expect, or what I think will happen in 2025 given this really rough economy. So let's kind of take a look at some of these. First, we have Crackdown on the Xbox 360. Crackdown is a very cool kind of like a open world run and gun kind of shooter game. To me, this game feels like a cross between like Grand Theft Auto and like Halo in a way. You know, you've got your vehicle, you can jump in your vehicle, you can drive around town, you can swim in the river. It's very open. There's little, there's little collectibles that you have to find throughout the game that are scattered all throughout the city. And I think graphically, it's a good looking game to look at. I'm a big fan of open world style games, so I'm a fan of Crackdown. This game, for some reason, is not expensive at all. Even without any type of like GameStop promotion, both Crackdown 1 and Crackdown 2, Crackdown 2 is basically just a continuation of the same game. There's really not much else about Crackdown 2 that makes it different. But these are two games that have always been historically cheap on the Xbox 360. There are probably games in the Xbox library that execute this format a lot better, which is probably why these games have always been like roughly $6 or $7 a piece. But for what they are and for the price that you pay, I think you get a lot of fun. I think you will get a lot of fun out of these games should you decide to check them out. Honorable mentions when it comes to the Xbox 360 for games that fall under that open world style are the games Prototype and Prototype 2. Now, I used to have Prototype and Prototype 2, but I sold those off and consolidated them into the Prototype Biohazard collection, which is available on the PS4 rather. And that game is a little bit more expensive. I think that's around 40, maybe 45 bucks. It does include all the DLC and it has everything on the disc, which is probably why. But these are two great games. If you're interested in more of that open world feel, Prototype 1 and Prototype 2 will also get you that. But I think these are some really great games to get started, especially if you don't have a collection or you're looking to still add to your collection, but you don't want to break the bank. The 360 overall, despite the 360 store closing, is still one of the cheapest consoles to collect for. So don't let the hype fool you. It's just certain games that have been delisted that are really expensive, but we're not looking at those today. We're just looking at the cheap but fun games. Next up is another game that is also very controversial. I think a lot of people don't like the way this game ends. It feels very unfinished. It's rough around the edges, but again, I still kind of like it. It's kind of like again, another one of those like open world style kind of hack and slash shooter games. Too Human is a game that I've talked about before. This is a very cheap game. Again, this is another one of those games that you don't need a promotion to get for $5. This game, you can find this game on eBay right now for probably like $6 or $7 at best. You're probably just be paying for that shipping and handling. Shipping and handling is usually what bumps this game up in terms of price. But if you find this in any retro game store, I wouldn't really pay more than $5 to $6 for this game. But Too Human is a pretty good game to check out. If you like the Prince of Persia series, well, you've got two really neat Prince of Persia games on the 360. Prince of Persia and Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. Again, these are a little bit more linear. I don't feel like the Prince of Persia games are as open as kind of like Crackdown. They're a little bit more linear in their format, but they are like action adventure games that are a ton of fun. As you can see, I have a particular taste in games. I'm more of the action adventure style. That's kind of what I'm into. And these are great like one player games. Like I'm at a point now where my kids, like if I want to play a game with my kids, I'm going to the Switch. We can play the Mario parties and we can play the Ninja Turtle games and stuff. But if you are just kind of like a loner type of gamer and you want to get into some one player action, the Prince of Persia games are definitely a great game, or great games that will give you a good amount of fun for a good amount of time. So these are two games that I would definitely recommend checking out. Another couple classic games on the Xbox 360 that many of you know about, the Fable series, Fable 2 and Fable 3. I believe these are more like action RPG type games. I've never really dove into these a ton. I've always meant to. Every time I say I'm going to sit down and dig into these games, I just get distracted with something else. But Fable games are extremely easy to find. I mean, you'll find a copy of Fable 2 and 3 anywhere. And again, these are extremely cheap games, but these are fun. Ask anyone who's played them, look at the reviews, who's played them through them fully. You know what I mean? Ask anyone who's beaten both of these games. They'll tell you that these games are a ton of fun. They're very cheap. They're very easy to find, very easy to add to your collection. The Fable games are games that I would definitely recommend. If you like RPGs, if you like action adventure games, check those out. I always love me a good hack and slash game. So I'm just gonna show these three all at the same time. You've got Ninja Gaiden, Golden Axe Beast Rider, and Conan. These are all very fun hack and slash games. I'm not sure if this version of Ninja Gaiden ever got a re-release anywhere else, but it is Ninja Gaiden 2. And then you have Golden Axe Beast Rider, which there is a PlayStation 3 version to this game, as well as Conan. There's a PlayStation 3 version to this game as well, but I feel like both of these games are cheaper on the 360. And they're just fun hack and slash games, man. They're not the longest games. They're not going to take forever to beat, but when you sit down and get going on them, you will have a very fun playthrough. And I'm a fan of the hack and slash genre, so these are ones that you may want to check out. Just to break up the 360 monotony, we can talk about some PlayStation games. We've obviously got the Grand Theft Auto series. We know Grand Theft Auto, I think 6 is coming out this year. They're saying that game is estimated to gross like billions of dollars, like $3 billion. I guess we'll see. But Grand Theft Auto is an amazing series, and a great installment in that series is San Andreas. San Andreas is a very great installment into the series, and I think that, again, this is another one of those games that's like a $7 to $8 game. There's millions of copies of this game floating around, and you do not have to hunt for this. The beautiful part about all of these games is that you don't have to hunt for them, with maybe the exception of Ninja Gaiden. But most of these games are just laying around in most of your game stores. These are not going to be the games that are behind the glass for the expensive games, right? These are going to be the games that are sitting out on the floor, readily accessible, and games that you can just grab, take home, and start playing. Next up, Kingdom Hearts 2. I've been playing this one. I'm not as big of a fan of Kingdom Hearts 2 as I am of Kingdom Hearts 1. I prefer Sora over Roxas. I don't know if I'm saying it right. But I do like the story in the original Kingdom Hearts. Not to mention that was a game that I played when I was in undergrad when I was bored. But both Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 you can find for under $10. These games are a lot like the Fable games. Millions of copies sold. There are millions of copies floating around out there. It is not hard at all to find a copy of this game. It's fun. These are fun games. This one is definitely one of the more family friendly games out of all the games that I've shown. Most of these games are like rated M for mature, or T, but Kingdom Hearts is the one game that you could definitely play with the kids around, and it's a very fun one. So I recommend checking that one out as well. And then last on the PlayStation, we're back to mature, and we've got Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and Metal Gear Solid 3, those are both, again, millions of copies printed. If you like tactical stealth, kind of action games, you will like these games. I grew up not really being the biggest fan of Metal Gear Solid. I'll be honest with you. I remember all my friends would play it like a ton. I wasn't a big fan of the stealth type games back then. But these are games that are growing on me. And before I dive into any of the more modern Metal Gear Solid games, I've been telling myself that I'm going to go back and play the originals. So I've got Sons of Liberty in my collection. I picked this up in a bulk deal, and this one is actually going to stay in my collection. And this copy was like darn near new, like like new condition. So that's definitely a cool one to find there, but a very cheap game nonetheless. Then you've got another set of games that are everywhere, and that is the Star Wars and Star Wars 2 games. So The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2. I play these games a lot. Like, I remember playing The Force Unleashed back when the Xbox 360 was like the thing to play. And I really like the controls in this game. It's more than a hack and slash game. The fact that you can use the lightsaber to deflect beams, you can do different attacks with your lightsaber. You can use the Force. The fact that you actually level up in this game with, RPG elements to it. I think this is one of the better Star Wars games out of all the Star Wars games that have come out. To me, The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2 is always going to go down as some of the best games. They're just downright fun. And if you're a fan of action, adventure with some hack and slash to it, and you're just a fan of Star Wars in general, you're going to like both of these games. And these are ones that I would definitely recommend. And the best part is they are cheap. Both of these games shouldn't pay more than $10 for each of these games at this point. There are billions of copies of of those games floating around. We left a couple hack and slashers out of the mix when we were talking about hack and slash games. And that was Viking. Viking is pretty much, it plays a lot like Conan. I really like the graphics in Viking. This is another one that released on the PlayStation 3 as well. But 99 Nights. Now, 99 Nights is a very cool game. This actually got a re-release. I don't know if it was strictly limited or limited run, but I know one of those limited companies did do a release of both 99 Nights and 99 Nights 2. 99 Nights 1 is very cheap. Same thing with Viking. Viking is like a $7 or $8 game. You don't need to wait for a promotion to pick this one up. This one is just cheap all around. 99 Nights was cheap, but then once they closed the 360 store, part 2 of 99 Nights did see a little bit of a surge in price. I know at one point it was touching close to $50 for 99 Nights 2, but it's come back down a little bit. So I don't know if it's back in the 30s yet, but I will say that part 1 is not as good as part 2. Part 1 is cool, but part 2 plays more closer. It feels more like Dynasty Warriors, and part 2, I think, was published by Konami. So, Konami, everything Konami touches, in my opinion, is just gold. I love Konami. I'm a fan. To me, my favorite companies are going to be Capcom and Konami for video games. Behind them is like Squaresoft or Square Enix, and then low-key Hudson Soft has some killer games under its belt. And then for 6th gen, I'm a big fan of Agetec. I think there's some killer Agetec games, but that's another video for another day. But these are 2 games that I would definitely recommend as well. If you're into the hack and slash scene, these are games that will provide you a bunch of fun. Some more fun ones here, right? So the Castlevania games, Konami, Lords of Shadow is a great game. If you like the original God of War games, God of War 1 and 2, you'll like Castlevania. The fighting style you know, the combat style in this game is very much similar to the God of War game. So if you like God of War, you'll like Castlevania. Cameo, Elements of Power. The story behind this one is really cool. Just being able to transform into different, I don't even want to say animals, but just different creatures. You're trying to get your different powers back. This is kind of like one of those more cartoony style action platformers, or action adventure games rather, I should say, on the Xbox 360. I just dig the format of this game. There's not a ton of games like this on the 360, and I think this one was executed pretty well. So this is a cool one to definitely check out if you're interested. And again, Castlevania Lords of Shadow is another one of those games that just, I'm shocked that it's always been historically cheap. It's never been like an expensive game. It's always been like a $10 game. So, I mean, there is a limited edition version that comes with like a soundtrack and like a steel case, not a steel case, but it's like more like a harder plastic shell. But I would just get the standard Castlevania Lords of Shadow. There is a Lords of Shadow 2 as well, but I don't think it's as cheap as the original Lords of Shadow. And then last but not least, we do have a PlayStation 3 game, and that is Enslaved. This is one that I grabbed during the 4 under 10 for 20. This is a cool, like, action adventure game, man. Like, some platforming to it. I think that this is pretty cool. If I'm not mistaken, hope I'm not mixing this up with something else, but Enslaved was definitely not expensive at all. Namco is pretty cool too. They do have some cool games. Probably one of my favorite Namco games is Splatterhouse, but I think that's Namco. But yeah, so Enslaved is another cool one. Haven't played a ton of this. I picked this up while I was on my way to like a play and trade event, and didn't get to spend too much time playing Enslaved. But that's another cool one that you can check out. So some really cool games, man. This is what $100 could get you in terms of video games in 2025. And I'm making this just for anyone who has felt like they can no longer collect in 2025. You feel like prices are through the roof. There is still a way that you can add to your collection. Just gonna give some honorable mentions here. Some honorable mentions would be games like Spider-Man 2, probably the best man in the earlier Spider-Man series. This is the best Spider-Man. For this generation, I think they do a good job with just the openness of this game. Classic Spider-Man gameplay. This is a good one. X-Men Legends. This is another classic one. These aren't exactly $10 and under. I think these are probably like $12 to $15 games, but X-Men Legends is a cool one. If you like Ultimate Alliance, you'll definitely like X-Men Legends. And then a PlayStation. This one's just slightly above the $10 mark. Rogue Galaxy will probably be like a $12 to $15 game, but still a good one on the PlayStation 1. One I recommend as well. A cool little action RPG game. So let me know down in the comments if you agree, or if there are any other games, cheap but fun games that I missed here. And I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.